welcome to the David Gregors Show. I am your host, David Gregors. This is the second episode of this podcast, and I'm so thankful that you are joining us and listening to what I have to say. It's definitely been a wonderful journey so far. Wouldn't say wonderful. It's been an experience. It's a lot of work to put one of these things together, and I'm just learning how to do it. And it's been fun. It's been fun. Let's just say that. So I want to start today's show talking, and I don't really want to start talking about it, but I feel like I have to. Okay, our first episode was about Sidney Powell, and overnight there was this sort of flurry of tweets and things that went out about Sidney Powell that I feel like I need to address. So overnight, the Trump campaign team put out this little statement, I guess, on Twitter. Some people are saying it's from Giuliani. I don't know. But basically the statement is Sidney's doing this. Sidney Powell is not part of the Trump legal team. She doesn't represent the Trump legal team, and she doesn't represent Trump personally. And that was the end of the statement. Well, for her part, Sidney Powell released a statement saying that she agrees with that statement. She's doing this for the American people, and gave a link if you wanted to provide her money. She's stated that they never signed any sort of retainer agreement or anything like that. All of that is really actually fine. I didn't really see anything. It actually, as an attorney, kind of made sense from a legal standpoint. It's giving the Trump team some space just in case she's not, 100%. She's not able to prove her case. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But Twitter blew up about this. And I don't know how many of you are on Twitter. Twitter is what it is. It's an unfortunate necessity if you're trying to get into any sort of political commentary, if you're wanting to promote your podcast, whatever, all the things that I'm trying to do, Twitter is somewhat necessary for, and I just can't do it on Parler. It's not the same thing. That's a different topic for a different day. But Twitter blew up about this, and you had everyone from Matt Walsh, all these people on here, Jim Garrity from National Review, all these people saying, see, we told you, she didn't have any evidence. Well, the statement didn't have anything to do with evidence. So they're taking something that's a distancing. It's really a strategic sort of distancing, and they're turning it into some sort of, they're throwing her under the bus. They're trying to cut off the wounded limb to save the body. I don't think it's that at all. I don't know what it is, okay? To be clear, I don't know what they're doing in the Trump campaign. I don't know what Sidney Powell's doing. The thing that keeps coming to my mind, though, is Republicans are the biggest losers I think I've ever seen in my life. And before you take offense at that, I just want you to think about the last 4 years since Donald Trump came into the Republican Party to save it from the Mitt Romneys, the Jeb Bushes, the Larry Hogans, the Marco Rubios. Trump came in and saved this. Why was Trump so successful? Think about that for a minute. Why was he so successful? Was it because he was this racist and appeals to the right-wing racism, whatever? No, that's absolute, complete nonsense. Trump did not succeed because he is a racist. Trump succeeded because he is a winner. He knows how to win. Say what you want about Trump. The guy knows how to get things done. He knows how to take an idea and turn it into something that benefits not only him, but his family. And as president, he was able to repeat that. He was able to take ideas and turn them into things that benefited us astronomically. The stock market with record highs, the economy roaring back to life after the Obama years. Unemployment going to the lowest levels we've seen, certainly in my lifetime and in most people's lifetimes. Trump knows how to get things done. The Republican Party, on the other hand, has been, since the days of Ronald Reagan, I apologize for my computer making noises, but ever since the days of Ronald Reagan, at the very least, and maybe since before that, the Republicans have been losers, perennial losers, abject losers. We have hitched our wagons to people like Bill Kristol and Jim Garrity and all of these people who are so willing, Rich Lowry, all of these people, Jonah Goldberg, all these people who are willing to turn the guns on ourselves, on their own party. They're willing to fire upon their own party when it looks like they're down. There's no reason that I should be seeing something from a National Review senior political correspondent, this long Twitter thread about how, the legal team was embarrassed about Sidney Powell and, all of this just nonsense. I'm not even going to read it. I'm kind of scrolling through it right now. It's not, she's a, here's one. Because the Trump campaign was distancing, Jim Garrity tweets out, first, let's dispense with this idea that Powell was some sort of rogue free agent lawyer and never part of the Trump legal team. Who cares? Who cares? Why do you care? All you care about is being right. And this is where the masks are coming off the Never Trumper. I don't know if this guy was a Never Trumper. I really don't. I know National Review tried to kind of coldly embrace Trumpism and Trump himself sort of, on the edges. But I don't think that, I don't think they ever fully embraced him. But this is, Jim Garrity, 43 minutes ago. Meanwhile, on a regular basis, Trump's legal team continues to assert blatantly false claims that are contradicted by all available records and data. Republicans, conservatives, if we don't expel these people, if we don't get rid of these people, if we don't stop buying their magazines and reading what they have to say, and I mean Eric Erickson, National Review, Bill Kristol, all of them, if you don't stop, you get what you deserve. You have gotten decades of losers, of people who don't know how to win. These people are freaking out. Eric Erickson is one. Freaking out about the claims that Sidney Powell is making about Georgia because he thinks it's going to suppress the Republican vote in the runoff in January for the 2 Senate seats. This is the problem. This is why fraud and corruption, all the way back to the 1960s and maybe before, this is why it never gets fixed. Because the people who are the victims of it, which is almost always Republicans, don't stop to fight it. They don't stop to ferret it out. They don't stop to fix it. They're always worried about the next election. And I want you again, think back to 2016. What were these people saying about Donald Trump? They were saying that if the Republican Party nominates Donald Trump, they will not see the White House for decades. That's what they were saying. They said that he would lose the White House for Republicans for decades. And now we're hearing this again with the Senate seat coming up in Georgia. I am 100% on board. I don't think that, I think that we need to pull out all the stops and get this Senate seat nailed down. But by no means do I think that Kelly Loeffler or David Perdue are the future of the party, of the Republican Party. I don't think that they're the standard bearers. I don't think they're going to be the ones. But I think they're the needed votes to keep some bad stuff from happening. But that being said, Republicans seem to never want to fight the battle that's in front of them, right? Republicans are looking 3 elections down the road. They're not worried about 2020. What happened in 2020? Never mind the fact that if Sidney Powell's claims are even 10% correct, even just 10%, even just 1 out of 10 of her claims, if only 1 out of 10 of her claims are correct, Republicans are going to have a hard time winning ever. Ever. But that's the battle in front of us, and these weak-spined, slimy, squishy Republicans can't see past. Well, they can't see what's happening right in front of them. All they're doing is looking past, looking down the road, 2024, 2028, 2022, 2026, looking at all of those elections, and they're not looking at the one that's right in front of them. This is why we have become so accustomed to losing, and this is why so many Republicans are very, very angry right now. They're very, very angry about what's happening, and they should be. You know, I keep thinking about how Mitt Romney was treated in the 2020 election, or excuse me, the 2012 election. Joe Biden went to an African American church and literally told the people that that Mitt Romney wants to put them back in chains. And yet, Mitt Romney genuflects to these people. He goes out into the media. He's slapping backs and all this stuff with the Democrats, but he was okay. He was okay. He is what they want Republicans to be. He is, and I don't just mean the Never Trumpers and the Rhinos and the Bill Kristols. The Bill Kristols, they loved Mitt Romney and they loved John McCain, but they hate Donald Trump. And all I can think of is that old Randy Travis song called "A Better Class of Losers." And that's what I think of these brandy sipping, cigar smoking types who, you know, sit and just make money off of the fact that they're losers. I mean, just, you know, you have these people and they're like, oh, well, let's look to the next election. Let's go out and have a cruise, or let's have a $500 a head dinner, and let's talk about how we can win the next election. They're not interested in that. They're not interested in it. What they are interested in is the money that you pay them. They are interested in your weekly standard subscriptions. They're interested in all of that, but they're not interested in actually winning anything. All of this talk that you hear about, you know, we want Trump's agenda without Trump the person, it is absolute nonsense. It's horse hockey. Don't believe it. They don't want the agenda they'd never have. Because if they wanted it, who cares? Who cares what Donald Trump tweets? Who cares what he says? Who cares what he did 30 years ago? Nobody. If you want the conservative justices, if you want the cutting of regulations, if you want the end to endless wars, then you have it in Donald Trump. But these people don't want that. And with the endless wars, that's a little bit of a caveat. Because I don't think these losers, these Bill Kristols and these Marco Rubios and these Jeb Bushes, I don't think they care 1 ounce, 1 bit about ending a war. I think they are the permanent war people, and that's just who they are, and that's just who they're going to be. So to kind of bring it back around, you know, the Sidney Powell thing, I don't know what's happening with that. I can see the logic in it as a legal move. I can also, there's some issues of standing that maybe, you know, I know Sidney Powell has talked about wanting to challenge some of the down ballot stuff, whereas the Trump campaign is wanting to really limit itself to his thing, which, I mean, you can probably make the strong argument that Trump's campaign only has the standing to challenge the ballots that he is affected by. But I do think that there are some good legal arguments for the distancing, none of which include she doesn't have evidence. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know. And then it would still be a good strategic move. But there's also, she could be sitting on a mountain of evidence, and there would still be all kinds of reasons that I could think of to not want to necessarily associate publicly with her. So take that for what you will. But, you know, I didn't want to talk about Sidney Powell today, and I guess I could talk about whatever I want. It's my own show. But I had actually wanted to talk about this great reset thing. And I've touched on it a little bit, and I'm going to touch on it a little bit right now just to give you a little taste of where we're going. You've heard a lot about this Great Reset, and if you haven't, then I'll give you a little background. There was this world conference that had Prince Charles and some other people early on in the COVID thing, the COVID era, or the COVID epoch, I guess is what we're heading to. But basically, these people got together and said, COVID is the perfect opportunity to reset our society. We're going to reset it and make it socialist and institute these equitable policies and reset it to, focus on healing the earth and cutting carbon emissions and yada yada yada. All this, basically, COVID is the gateway to doing all of the things that we've always wanted to do, but now we have an excuse to do it because we're making everyone stay at home, we're gagging them with masks, and now we can do what we want to do. This was open. This was openly said. I'm paraphrasing. I did a little bit of an Adam Shift parody there, but you get the point. That was it was actually quite open what they were talking about. I think that's interesting, but I think that what is really most important for us is how are we going to resist that Great Reset? Do you think Joe Biden's going to resist the Great Reset? No. Donald Trump was probably the only one who was going to do it, to be quite honest, and I don't know. It doesn't look like we're going to have him anymore, at least in the White House for now. So, what this does is it forces our people are the only ones who are going to resist this. And when I say our people, I unfortunately, sadly, mean our Republican Party. Our Republican Party is the only vehicle through which we're going to be able to resist this. And as I've just mentioned, our Republican Party is filled with people who have no spines. They have no backbones. I think you have a number of them that will instinctively oppose socialism or communism, like Marco Rubio. I think he instinctively does that because of his background, but I don't think he's got, if the question is, should we have socialism or communism tomorrow, Marco Rubio is a solid no vote. But if the question is, should we take any one of the 1,000 steps that will eventually lead us to socialism, Marco Rubio is less solid. So, and I say the same thing about Jeb Bush, George W. Bush back when he was a thing. Any of the people I've already talked about, I think there are very few, let's just say it this way, I think there are very few who would strongly resist like Donald Trump. And that is what I am going to call the Great Realignment. So we have the Great Reset. What's going to happen in our country with our parties, I think, is going to be a great realignment against this Great Reset. And when we ask ourselves, what is this Great Realignment? Why do you think it would realign like this? I mean it because of how angry people are within the Republican Party about the Republicans. I mean it because of the number of liberals. There are a handful of the liberals in the media who have been essentially shunned by the left because they didn't buy all the Russia and every little thing. They didn't believe that Trump was Hitler and all this. They just thought he was going to be a bad president. They didn't buy the line of BS that was being propagated by the left. And so even though these journalists are liberals, they have somewhat been shunned. And so it became clear to me that we really do have a setup here of a red pill, blue pill type situation. And I think that's along the lines of where the alignment is going to happen. Now you can say, well, David, this has already happened. You have people who are red pilled and you have people who are blue pilled. I'm not talking about it exactly the way it's currently being used. I'm just using it as an example. You're going to have people out there who see the truth, or at least see the outlines of the truth, who respect the truth, who want to know what is true, what is false. And then you have those who knowingly accept the lie So they may be able to see the truth, maybe not, but they definitely know they're being lied to, and they accept it anyway. When you look on Twitter and you look on the mainstream social medias, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, you can find it. You can find it. You can find it any of these places where they want to talk about critical race theory. You can talk about, find it on any of these places where they're talking about Trump, which is almost everything. Go through the comments and read all the people who couldn't possibly believe what they're saying, but they're saying it anyway. Those are the ones I'm talking about. And the realignment is going to happen with those people being separated. This is the wheat from the chaff. We are going to be outnumbered for sure. But those are the chaff. And they're going to include your Jonah Goldbergs, your Bill Kristols. They're going to include a lot of Republicans. So I just look at this and I don't really see any other outcome except for possibly the formation of a new political party. Think about this for a moment. Donald Trump is out of power on January 20th. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's argue that. Donald Trump is out of power on January 20th. On January 21st, 2020, he begins his campaign for 2024. Do you think, for one moment, that the Republican Party is currently constituted, in other words, the people who ran it before Trump and who have remained close to the levers of power since Trump, do you think they are going to allow him to run again? I want you to think about that for a moment. Do you think those people are going to let Trump run again? I don't think they are. I don't think they are. So I think by 2022, Trump is going to have to make a decision. He's going to have to decide whether it's worth fighting the Republican Party or if he and 75 million of his closest friends go off and start the 2024 version of the Bull Moose Party. I think there's a real possibility that's going to happen. I mean, honest to goodness, how much do you think that the Bill Kristols and all those people that we've mentioned before, how many of those people do you think would salivate at the idea of putting Marco Rubio on the ticket? They would love it. You know how I know? Because they loved it last time. But I know even more because we're already starting to see the abandonment of the Republicans of Trump. Just last week, I saw an article, I believe in the Washington Post, that talked about Mitch McConnell and some other Republicans having discussions about amnesty for immigrants. Now, you can debate the relative pros and cons of that. I'm not talking about should there be amnesty or should there not be. What's more important is that Trump is still litigating this election, and you already have the Republicans breaking from his number one policy procedure or number one policy priority by trying to introduce amnesty. It's already happening. How many Republicans have jumped ship since November 2nd? Even in the face of a bunch of evidence of fraud and a lot of questions, and this is still being litigated. Oh, he's got to concede. He's got to start giving, start this transition, blah, blah, blah. They're not on your side, people. These Republicans are not on your side. They are high-class losers, and they think you are all gutter trash. They don't care. They have taken your votes for granted for 30 years, maybe more. They have figured you were too stupid to know what they were doing. And maybe we all were. Maybe we all were. I mean, Donald Trump was an anomaly. I mean, certainly from the past Republican candidates. The closest thing to Donald Trump was George W. Bush. And look what happened. Look what happened with George W. Bush. Trump still has some history to make, and I think that he's willing to do it. And a lot of people out there think that this, duopoly, the Republicans and the Democrats, this is the biggest problem with the country. I don't necessarily agree, but I don't disagree. But maybe this is the last bit of history that Trump can make, is breaking that up once and for all. Because if Trump wants to run for president in 2024, he's going to do it without the Republican nomination if he wants to. He may think he's doing himself a favor by keeping Ronna McDaniel in charge of the RNC, but I don't think that's going to matter. I think that she will cut him off just as easily as anyone else. I'm probably going to write about this a little bit more this week because I feel like I've had to talk so much about Sidney Powell that I didn't really get a chance to explore the great realignment the way that I wanted to, and I'm going to keep this as close to 35 minutes as I possibly can. But I am excited to introduce to you today a brand new segment of the show that I'm going to call Today in Culture. This is kind of a lighthearted thing where I see things in the world that are peculiar and I kind of explore them, and they probably aren't as heavy and meaningful as some of the other things that are talked about here or out in the world. But I think that it's one of those these topics are going to be one of those things where it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. So it's like these little things that are just meant to change our opinions without us even really being aware that it's happening. All of that, and also to preserve our groceries. And it may not have made a whole lot of sense, but that's what we did. But we've been doing a lot of takeout, and we have this app for our phones. I'm not going to mention the name, but we have this app for our phones, and you can get on there and you can order, and somebody will bring you your food. So one of the things you see is the menus on there. Everybody's got a little bit of different menu, and you can tell that it's not just this app's rendering of the menu. It's like actually their menu. It's got their little cutesy names for appetizers and all of that. So I was, several months ago, I ordered some fajitas. And there were a lot of options for this fajita. You could get the corn tortilla, you could get the queso, you could get the extra vegetables added to it. And each of them had the little delineation, so you could do the little drop-down box, and it told you what was in the drop-down box: vegetables, tortillas. And then I get to one that says protein. And I'm like, what in the world are they talking? What proteins? I looked in the drop down and it was meat. It was chicken, beef, or shrimp. And I thought, why would they call it protein? I'm sitting here. I've on and off done some like weight training and all that, and I know. So my mind is already kind of geared towards protein and taking in a lot of protein. And when you're doing the weight training, you need to take a lot of protein, and so you look for all these little extra protein shots and all that. I thought that's what Chili's was doing. I thought Chili's was offering to put a protein shot in my fajita, and it seemed odd. So I looked at the list, and like I said, it was just steak and chicken and shrimp. And then I thought, well, why are they calling it protein? And I just sort of brushed it off. I didn't really think about it. But as time went on, I started seeing this more and more and more. And I'm like, okay, all right. This is one of those things that makes so little sense, and now it's being repeated over and over again that I have to explore it. So the problem I have with it is, number one, it seems like it's overly sanitary. It's just, why say protein when you mean meat? It reminds me of some sort of dystopian future where we're, taking our protein pills and putting our helmets on, and, we're just eating these pills, and you have one protein pill, and you have a glucose pill, and you have a carbohydrate pill, and there you go, you're good for the day. It just seems weird. It seems impersonal. I don't like it. I can't imagine, at Thanksgiving dinner saying, having this nice big turkey and saying, would you like a slice of protein? How about a nice carbohydrate? Would you like some some gravy on your carbohydrate. And for dessert, here's a nice glucose. It doesn't seem right. Not only is it not specific, but it seems odd. It seems off. It doesn't seem like something that human beings would say in normal conversation. So I started thinking about why they would do this, why this would be a thing, and it occurred to me that I think this is one of those inclusion things. So I've known vegetarians, and I can just imagine being at a restaurant and some vegetarian or vegan somewhere saying they want fajitas and really being upset that their tofu was called meat on the menu. I can see it. I can see that happening just because I know how unreasonable and crazy people are who believe in those things. Look, there's nothing wrong with being a vegetarian. There's nothing wrong with being a vegan. I think it's actually commendable. It's not for me. But I know that some of these people do tend to get a little preachy. And if I can see that maybe 1 out of 1,000, maybe 1 out of 10,000 of them would get upset for calling their tofu meat. But it just strikes me as that's probably what's happening here, is that they're calling it protein because they don't want to call tofu meat. As I said, I've known a number of vegetarians and vegans, and I've never known one of them to feel like they were being excluded by calling their tofu meat. Seems weird. But I do think that what makes them feel excluded is when there is no tofu available. Now, nobody is going to confuse tofu with meat, even if you have it under the meat section. I just really don't think that's a thing. And my thought is that it's just another one of these fake attempts to be inclusive, because we have to include everyone. And when you do these things, to try to broaden the scope so nobody feels left out, what you're actually doing is sanitizing the culture to remove it of all of its color, of all of its flavor, of all of its meaning. The word protein does not belong on a menu, period, unless you are getting a protein shake or something like that. But if you're ordering a fajita, the protein shouldn't be a part of it. But it just seems silly to me. And I think it's part of one of the death by 1,000 cuts that we're going to explore on this show. It doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just kind of annoying. But I also think it's one of those things that the companies out there are trying to force us to think in more inclusive ways. And when they do it, they make a fool of themselves. So that does it for today. This was a long episode. I thank you for hanging in there with me. If you like what you heard, please like, share, subscribe, whatever. I'm not exactly sure what the options are on the whatever you're listening to this program on. I don't know what your options are. I just hear that said on YouTube a lot. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. So if you have those options, please do it. If you don't like what you hear, don't worry about it. But tell us what you think. Feel free to subscribe. Tell your friends. Tweet us. Follow me on Twitter, David Gregors. I'm on Parler as well, David J. Gregors. And we're going to get better. We're getting better every day. This is the second episode, and so I thank you for having the patience with me. And if you have something you'd like to hear me talk about, if you want to have a cultural item that really gets under your skin and grinds your gears, let me know about it. And I'll talk about it here. I'm happy to destroy anything sacred and loving that the left is trying to push off on us. So with that, be safe, be well, and until next time, God bless.